The Honourable Dr Jonathan Coleman.
Mr Speaker, you'd have to say this speech is actually a bit of a misnomer. I mean, it should really be called the unaffordable healthcare bill, because actually there's been no mention in the arguments around this about how much this would all cost. What Mr Peters doesn't tell you is that this would actually cost an extra $150 million. That's the Conservative estimate. Mr Peters had the chance to put his argument, but he did not put up any figures. And the fact is, Mr Speaker, to give this subsidy for gold card holders, it would actually cost far more than the cost of providing the elective surgery. That's the bottom line with it. So you've got to look, Mr Speaker, at what your policy settings are and what you're trying to achieve overall. And if you're trying to provide more elective surgery to more people of whatever age group, the current policy settings of this government are exactly the right ones. And I can tell you what, if you look at the results, we have delivered. So we are delivering an extra 50,000 operations per year, an extra 60,000 first surgical assessments, an extra 60,000 first medical specialist assessments. So, Mr Peters, what the member needs to do is go and look very clearly at what he's trying to achieve. And if he wants to provide more elective surgery at a better price for more people, he should back the current government's policy. It's very interesting, actually, to see Mrs King getting up and trying to make out that she thinks this policy is a good idea, and she was talking extensively about rebates for gold card holders and how it made sense to provide a rebate. Well, that's in direct contrast to what she said when she was Minister of Health back in 2004. When she was asked about this during question time, she said, "I think that probably is a question for the Minister of Finance, but I know of no work he is doing to subsidise medical insurance for people over 65, mainly, I would think, because it does not work." So Mrs King, when she was Minister of Health, didn't think this was a sound policy. She didn't think it would work, but she's had some sort of road to Damascus experience. Either that, or she was just making up her arguments on the spot to suit the politics of the day. But Mrs King, you can't say one thing on the record when you're Minister. You can't say, no, you're not believable. That's the problem for Mrs King. She is no longer believable. She's full of bluster. This is classic Annette King bluster, because she forgets it's laid down in the Hansard. She didn't think this is a good thing to do when she was Minister, but now today, when she can score a couple of cheap political hits, she thinks it's a very good idea. But actually, she knows that the finances around this do not stack up. I just endorse Mr Bishop's point there about New Zealand First and basically the divisions that this bill has caused in their caucus. And old two letterboxes over there, Mr O'Rourke, he will be resigning from the New Zealand First caucus if this goes through. So secretly he will be praying that this is defeated at first reading tonight, as of course it will be, because he would have to stick to his word and say that yes, he would be resigning, because he called this bill racist and discriminatory, because it was going to make parent category migrants hold health insurance for 10 years. And as we all know in this House, Mr Speaker, that is unworkable dog whistle politics that would not work. It would completely alienate the votes of our hard-working ethnic communities, would be completely unfair. I actually don't even think that Mr Peters, who is a very fair man, agrees with it himself, but he knows it's actually a great chance to get up, score a few dirty little rabbit punches at the bottom of the ruck and try and appeal to the Grey Party crowd. But, Mr Speaker, this bill really does show the difference in healthcare policy approaches between the National-led government and our opponents in Labor, who frankly have no policy. Their only answer around healthcare is to say they'll provide more money. But what they didn't say tonight is that this will cost an extra $150 million. I know Grant Robertson is committed to running surpluses. Mrs King, as Deputy Leader, obviously agrees with that. This is the unaffordable healthcare bill. It's good to see the Greens in a rare flash of common sense, no doubt guided by the sound economic credentials of their new leader, saying, look, this is crazy stuff, we can't go with people on this. So we do not commend this bill to the House. Frankly, it's a load of rubbish. It's the unaffordable healthcare bill.